my name's Kennedy, and today I'll be teaching you how to do different bandages and wraps on a horse. So the benefits of bandaging and wraps on a horse can be for multiple different reasons. Sometimes if your horse has some inflammation, if they're getting stocked up in their back legs, that can help put some pressure on the area to relieve some of the stress or any kind of pain that they may have. It's especially popular to have standing wraps for horses who have just been in a long competition. So that can be different things such as a wound wrap on your horse, so that can be any kind of cut or abrasion that wouldn't be necessarily able for them to treat on their own. Or it could be any kind of hoof abscess, if they have any kind of problems with their foot, anything like that. These can all be beneficial for it. So today we're going to be using Idolize. She's going to be our little horse demonstrator for today. And the first wrap that I'm going to show you is actually a polo wrap. So the polo wrap has no benefits whatsoever in supporting the leg at all. Basically, the polo wrap is only used for protection against interference between the legs. So that could be anything from one leg striking another or a front leg interfering and kind of catching with the other. So this is what a typical polo wrap looks like. It's made of cotton. It's not very stretchy, but it is easily machine washable. Basically, the reason that we use polo wraps, it can be anything from they look pretty, they can be different designs, or just because we want to have a little bit of protection from the legs without any support for them. So, to put the polo wrap on, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to make sure that the leg is clean, make sure there's no dust or dirt or debris or anything on there, because we don't want anything to possibly cause abrasions against the leg. So this polo wrap looks like it'll be a little bit long, so I'm going to make some smaller revolutions. So whenever I say revolution, I'm basically meaning the wrap around the leg. So typically you don't want to put your knee or anything on the ground just in case the horse does spook or anything like that. You want to have enough of a mobility to be able to move away from them if anything causes them to spook or move. So we're going to start with the polo wrap. You want it to be wrapped so that whenever you put it on the leg, you can basically just move it wherever you need to. It's probably going to be more comfortable for you to start midway through the leg and wrap counterclockwise. You don't want to start the leg and wrap like this just because it's just not typical to see it wrapped like that. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start on the leg. I'm not going to be putting any kind of pressure on the wrap at all, so I'm not going to be pulling or tugging or anything like that. So the revolution is basically just the amount that I'm going down from wrapping the foot. We're going to try and make it as even as possible. And then once you get to the bottom of the leg, you want to wrap around the fetlock and come back up. Some people actually, if the wrap is long enough, they'll come back down and do another revolution. But since this wrap is somewhat running out already, I'm just going to go ahead and do it normally like I normally would. Come back up. Again, want to make sure there's no wrinkles. You want to make sure your revolutions are staying fairly similar. Keep the same amount of tightness, no pulling or tugging in any unnecessary spots. And then once you hit the Velcro, this is actually the perfect area for it to end. You want the Velcro to end on the outside of the leg, just because if the Velcro does end on the inside, it would be a lot easier for the leg to catch it on the opposite side and be able to pull it off. So this is a nice polo wrap for her. That's going to offer some protection from any of her legs interfering with each other. But again, it's not going to offer any type of support for the leg, so it's not going to be used in exchange with other like boots or other like splint boots, things like that. The next wrap that I'll be demonstrating is a regular standing wrap. So as I mentioned before, standing wraps are heavily utilized, especially in the hunter jungle world, dressage world. Honestly, any different seats could use these standing wraps. The benefit of them is, again, to reduce any kind of inflammation or puffiness within the leg. So Idolize actually recently had an episode of cellulitis, so I've recently been wrapping her leg a lot lately. And basically with cellulitis, we're just trying to minimize the size of the leg and also just increase the blood flow to it so that any type of circulation isn't cut off within the leg or within the foot, anything like that. So the first thing that you'll need for a standing wrap is a pillow. You can call it a pillow wrap or a quilt wrap. Quilts are basically just in a quilted pattern. So for this one, we're going to be using a long, since it's going to be on her back leg, and she has fairly long legs for a thoroughbred. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. So, the other thing that you'll need for a standing wrap is what we call a track wrap. So the track wraps are a little bit stretchier than the polo wraps. They're usually made of nylon or a different synthetic material. Again, easily machine washable. The only difference between these are, since there isn't very much stretch to it, that could cause cording within the horse. So cording is actually either cutting off the circulation between a tendon or basically just wrapping the leg too tight to where it's just uneven pressure, and it could possibly either cause a bandage bow or just bow the tendon, which could be very painful for the horse and also be a long recovery for him as well. So I'm going to start by making sure it's wrapped properly. So we always want the softer side touching the horse's skin and the more rough or fabric side towards the outside of the wrap. And then I'm actually going to tie up her tail just so there's no interference within the wrap. And then especially whenever you're wrapping back legs, you really don't want to put your knee or anything else on the ground, just because that is more likely for them to be able to spook or have any kind of episodes to where they'd want to get out of the way quickly. So I'm going to have my track wrap in my lap, again kneeling down. And same with the polo wrap, I'm going to start a little bit lower than normal. We basically want, since this is going to turn into a stack wrap later on, we want the wrap to be a little bit below the fetlock, but still above the coronet band of the horse's hoof. So again, wrapping it around. This one you may have to tug and pull and tuck things in just a little bit more, just because it is a lot more area to cover. Nice right there. The way that I like to apply my track wraps is to actually tuck a little bit of the wrap underneath the pillow and then start there. And you want your track wrap to be wrapped up as tight as possible, because the looser the track wrap is, the harder it is to actually make the standing wrap. So again, keeping the revolutions even. Any kind of wrinkles that we have, we'll want to straighten those out. And then I am applying a little bit of pressure whenever I'm pulling the wrap, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to yank or I'm not going to pull on it, especially if I'm wrapping towards the back. I'm never going to pull towards the back of the tendon. I'll always be able to pull where the actual bone is. Want to leave about half an inch to an inch of the tracker or the pillow wrap showing, just so you have a little bit left to prevent any kind of debris or other outside foreign objects being able to enter the wrap. And then ideally I would have liked for this to come up just a little bit more, but this is totally okay if I'm going to add it to a stack wrap. I am going to adjust this a little bit just so there's no gaps or sagging or anything like that. And again, I would have liked the Velcro to be towards the outside so that if she were to move around with her other leg, there wouldn't be any interference where she could possibly rip this off a lot easier. So the next wrap I'll be showing you is a stack wrap, but the first thing we're going to do before adding this other wrap on top of the leg is go over what a wound wrap is. So typically whenever you're doing a stack wrap, that's basically a wrap that goes above the hock or above the knee for an injury or wound that's above where that area is. It is a lot harder of an area for it to heal, so we do want to have some sort of wrap over top of that wound or any kind of scrape, just so we know that it has the most effective time possible for healing. So what we use for a wound wrap is actually what we call a Telfa pad. So it has kind of this plastic film on the outside of it, and then it's just cotton on the inside. We have cling gauze. You can either have this small white cling gauze, or there's also brown gauze that's a little bit longer, maybe like 3 or 4 inches longer. And then you want to have what we call our goops. So our most popular goop that we use or type of wound dressing is Biocide gel. So it is kind of a weird reddish gross color, not pleasant. So usually if you're applying a wound wrap or anything like that, you will want gloves. If you don't have any gloves present, then you can actually just kind of dip the Telfa pad into the goo and then stick it right on the leg. So we're gonna pretend that right here on just above her gaskin is where she has a little bit of scratch. So just for the purpose of the video, I'm not gonna apply the actual goop to her because she doesn't need it, but we're just gonna pretend that the wound is right here. So, and if there was a goop on it, it would stick a lot easier, don't worry. So we're gonna take the cling gauze, again, just loosely wrapping it around the leg. It does not have to be super tight whatsoever because since you're gonna put the stack wrap over top of it, that's what's gonna keep it in place. And just do a couple revolutions of that just so it kind of sticks to itself, doesn't have a lot of area to move. And then I was gonna cut it, but obviously since there's not much left, you can honestly just kind of wrap it around itself. And again, it's called cling gauze because it basically just kind of sticks to itself. So that's the basis of a wound wrap. So to add to the stack wrap, we're basically just going to be doing the same thing that we did with the standing wrap, just over the hock. So rewrapping my pillow wrap, again having the softer side towards the skin. I have my track wrap in my lap, and then since it is a stack wrap, you may want to have a third track wrap steady or handy for you, just because since her legs are a little bit longer, it may be a lot harder to connect the one track wrap used on the stack to the bottom one also. Not happy. Not happy. We're just gonna let her work out of it. Okay. So then you want her to put weight on the leg that you're wrapping. There we go. So since it is over the hock, this is going to be a lot more difficult for you to be able to put the wrap on. So two different ways that you can actually apply the stack wrap is either overlapping the wrap with the other or stacking it on top. I personally like overlapping it just a little bit just because I feel like it stays in place a lot easier. So again, move his hand out of the way. I'm going to start by slightly overlapping and then wrapping around. And then, just like before, since these are a little bit smaller of a track wrap and her leg is so long, I'm actually going to be starting a little bit lower. And I'm never going to be starting the wrap on the hock. I'm either going to be starting it below or above, just because since it is a joint and it has a lot of heavy movement, you don't want to inhibit that movement or restrict any kind of movement for them to be able to increase the healing process. So again, also very nice to have a nice hold on it, because then if something like this happens, you can still just hold on to it, wait for her to kind of work out of it. Ask her again to move over so that she can put weight on it. There we go. So again, that's also why it's super important for you to be able to kneel down and easily get up whenever you can. So we're just doing some pulling. And then the whole purpose of a stack wrap is you want to be able to put your revolutions over top of where the Velcro is on the regular standing wrap, just because that's going to be able to anchor it in place and have it be a lot more stable and a lot more comfortable for the horse. And it doesn't have to be a ton of revolutions. As long as you have one good revolution over top of it, that's all you need. Again, kind of just pulling, making sure that there's no wrinkles or anything like that in the wrap. Sometimes it'll kind of lose its tightness, so you may have to rewrap and go back over where you just were. So like I said before, since her leg is a little bit longer, I want to have that third track wrap just to be able to really keep it steady in place. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And again, I'm not going to start on the hock. I'm either going to start a little bit above or below it. So I'm actually going to start above it. That way I can have one good revolution around that Velcro and keep it in place a lot easier. And then if it is over the hock, one thing that a lot of people like to do is actually do kind of like this X formation. So I'll show you that right now. So one thing they like to do is actually go down under the hock, cup it, and then come back up. And you can do that multiple times just to make sure that the wrap stays in place. So again, cup underneath the hock, and then come back up. And you still want to have that kind of ½ inch to an inch of standing wrap or pillow wrap underneath. And that's a stock wrap. So, since the Velcro is barely on there, one thing that we're going to do is actually take some masking tape and wrap it around the leg, just so if she does happen to move and accidentally pops the Velcro off, that masking tape, it's easily enough to rip off to where it's not going to cord her at all, but it also is pliable enough to where it can keep it on for a long period of time. So here I have my masking tape. So I'm basically just going to take it, start on the actual Velcro, probably like 1.5 inches, 2 inches over where the Velcro meets. I want to have one revolution to where it comes back and attaches to the tape itself. And then after that, we basically just take it, wrap it around. We're not making any type of pulling or tension with it. We basically just want to wrap it around enough to where, again, if it kind of unravels itself, there's enough on there to where it won't take the actual wrap off. And then the last thing that we want to do is take elasticon and put it at the top and bottom of the wraps. So elasticon looks like this, and basically one side of it is really sticky and one side of it is not. So since it is so sticky and hard to take off, you never want to put it on the horse and then pull it, because then that could also cause cording for the horse and also just be really uncomfortable for them. So I'm basically just going to take out how much I think I need. I'm going to take it. I want to cover that ½ inch of the wrap that I left open, and then put the last half of it over top. And again, if I do need to take anything else, I'll put my hand where the extra of the wrap is, so that it's not actually pulling against her, it's pulling the tension up against my hand. I'll take my bandage scissors and then basically just flatten it out up against itself. Then I'll do the exact same thing on the bottom of the wrap. Put it up against itself. And then basically just push the tape up against the skin. The whole point of elasticon is basically to keep any kind of debris or outside foreign objects out of the wrap. This is just an extra precaution so that anything doesn't get inside whatever or wherever the wound is on the horse. And again, you never want to leave the wrap on for more than 12 hours. 12 hours is about the maximum that you want to leave it. You always want to take it off and recheck it just for any kind of loose ends, any kind of wrinkles that may have happened. and then also just check to make sure that it feels the same throughout, which it does, and that's a successful wrap. The last wrap that I'm going to show is a hoof wrap. So a hoof wrap is utilized if a horse has an abscess, if they have a hot nail, if they have some sort of problem with their line. Basically, it's just a way for us to be able to track the hoof's progress and healing, and also just make sure that we have some sort of drawings out to get any of the infection or any kind of problem out of the hoof. So the different supplies that you may need are, first off, to actually soak the wrap, you'll want to have a shallow pan, which could be anything from a bucket or a shallow feed pan, just enough to where whenever they stand in it, their hoof is completely covered in the water. The water that you want to have in there should be warm to a little bit on the hotter side. You don't want it to be so hot to where obviously it's going to burn their skin, but you want it to be warm enough to where any kind of infection is automatically drawn out. So in the water, you actually want to put some Epsom salt. So guesstimating the amount of Epsom salt, you basically want to put it in there until it stops melting. So you want to be able to see a couple of granules of the Epsom salt down in the bottom of the dish. And then also you want to put a little bit of betadine solution in there to also help with the drawing out and also any kind of infection that's in there. So for the sake of the video, we're not going to be soaking the hoof at all, just showing you the different equipment used for it. But then for the actual wrap, usually we have some sort of drawing salve. So another popular one besides Mag 60, which is the one that I have here, is actually Ixamol. That one also looks like the Biocide gel that I showed previously. Mag 60 paste is just green. It kind of has like a Epsom salt texture to it. It's a little more gritty. So basically you have some sort of goop. You have a baby diaper, which works really well for actually holding the hoof, the wrap in place. You can have a latex glove if you want to. Some people, they'll just put either like the Telfa pad or anything else like that into the actual goop, or if you want to actually scoop it out yourself, you can have a latex glove. So you have the goop, the diaper, you're going to have vet wrap. You can have either a whole roll, a half a roll, but you want to have at least half a roll to be able to cover the actual hoof. You want to have bandaging scissors, and then you also want to have duct tape. So duct tape will be the outer layer of what the wrap is. And before you actually do your wrap, you want to make what we call a duct tape square. So this is what my square looks like. Basically, I just put layers of duct tape on my leg and just cross hatch them. I used about 3 or 4 layers of duct tape just so it has enough durability to where it lasts if she goes outside, stays in her stall, wherever she needs to go. That way I don't have to rewrap it every single day if needed. So we'll go ahead and put that here just to have it. And then the first thing that you want to do before doing anything is make sure that the hoof is completely clean. Obviously, you don't want to have any kind of rocks, dirt, manure, anything like that in there. So we're going to be doing the demonstration on her front left foot. So it's fairly clean right now, but basically just going over making sure everything's out of there that needs to be. And then for this, you're going to pull your pan over closer. And then again, pretending that you have some sort of goop applied on there, you'll use your latex glove, pack it into the foot however much you need. The easiest way for you to wrap a foot is actually going to be in a farrier hold. So this is going to be how I hold her foot. And then when you use the baby diaper, you want to have the blue tabs that hold it together. These are white actually, but you want to have the white tabs be able to come towards the front of the foot so that it's not on the heel bulbs or anything like that to where it can possibly tear the hair off. So right where it bends right there is the perfect place to have it. Tuck the bottom area up, take the tabs, wrap it around, tuck it in, take the tabs, wrap around. At this point, you could put the hoof down if you wanted to, but just for the sake of the video, I'm going to be able to just hold it up in place. So here's my vet wrap that I'm going to use. So you're wanting to find the edge of it. And for the vet wrap, Basically, this is going to be the main security hold of the actual diaper. So for that, I'm going to wrap all the way around the edge of the foot just to have some sort of base. And then after that, I'm going to start wrapping around. You want to have the whole baby diaper covered just so you know that it's strong enough to withstand whenever you have the duct tape over top of it. And again, she's starting to get a little bit antsy, so the farrier hold is the easiest way for you to hold it. And also it's easy for you to just move your leg out of the way so that if she does freak out, you can easily go away. So now that we have all of the wrap around, this is the point where you can be able to drop the hoof. Let them be able to stand on it, do whatever they need to. It can get a little tiring for them holding their foot up for a long time, so you can let them move around, do whatever they need to. And then the next thing that you're going to do is apply the duct tape square and then extra pieces of duct tape if needed. So I'll keep my duct tape here in my pocket just to have it on hand whenever needed. And then for this, again, I'm just going to put that on my leg. Make sure you have any kind of dust or debris wiped off of the hoof. And then you basically want to find the easiest way for you to put this on there. You want it to be able to wrap around each side and up on the toe. And then you basically just fold the edges up onto itself. And then for the duct tape, some people like to take strips and put it around the hoof, but I like to take one continuous one, just like the vet wrap, and do it that way, if I can get the edge on it. So then I'll basically take it, put it at the edge here, hold on to it, and do basically like 2 or 3 circulations on the side, just to really secure it into place. Rip it off, pull the edges down, and then you can let the foot down. So ideally you do want to have the duct tape cover all the bed wrap, so this is whenever you can take those extra little strips, however long you need the pieces to be, just to be able to cover it and secure it on the foot. Take a couple of pieces and just put it on the hoof. Since it's covering her cornet band, you don't want to cut off circulation there, so we're going to take our scissors and trim up some of the excess. So basically, I'm just going to take this, cut around the diaper. There. And then if it's still a little tight, you can basically just cut downwards. There we go. So that there's an opening right there at the edge, and then any kind of vet wrap or duct tape that's actually touching the skin, you want to be able to cut that off. And then that's the end of your hoof wrap. And then basically to take it off, you take your bandaging scissors. You don't want to use regular scissors just because the bandaging scissors do have the little safety rubber on the edge. So then to take it off, you're able to just put the edge of it down there towards the bottom of where the frog is. Cut it down and then just peel it off. And that is how you wrap the hoof.